An ESPN analyst calls out a major flaw in the Toronto Raptors offense. Additionally, Bleacher Report came out with 3 fresh trade targets for the Toronto Raptors, and we also have an injury update to report on. So a bunch of stuff to dive into. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. We have a lot of stuff we have to cover, and the first thing we're taking a look at is an ESPN analyst calling out the Toronto Raptors offense. Now, a lot of people are familiar with Zach Lowe. He's an analyst on ESPN. He has his podcast, The Lowe Post, and he's a guy that's generally pretty positive regarding the Toronto Raptors. You see someone this summer that called the ranking of OG Anunoby in ESPN's top 100 list baffling. It's something that's going to look foolish after a couple months, and he was definitely right on that front. But the Raptors, while they've had some positives with the emergence of Pascal Siakam as playing on almost an MVP level for stretches of the season, the emergence of OG Anunoby, the level of offense, defense, and just overall record hasn't lived up to expectations. And one area that has sort of been overlooked and has been talked about a bunch is the Toronto Raptors half-court offense. Obviously, we discussed the shooting on every single podcast. We discussed the amount of open threes we've been giving up, but the half-court offense in particular has just been absolutely brutal. And Zach Lowe came out and criticized it in his podcast today, essentially breaking down that if you're 29th in half-court offense, the only team that's less efficient than you in the half-court is the Houston Rockets, then you're not going to win any playoff games. And this is a very interesting point because obviously the Raptors, they're a young team. They have a lot of fresh legs. They have a lot of athletes. Masai Ujiri built a roster of guys that are long, wiry, athletic, and play some defense, and with the exception of Fred VanVleet and Malachi Flynn. But the Raptors have executed pretty solidly in fast breaks this season. Scotty Barnes can get outrun, Pascal can get out and run. We have a lot of guys that sort of fit that skill set. However, in the half court, paired alongside the brutal shooting, we just don't execute on any plays, right? Sure, the shooting is a big factor in that. You need floor spacers to sort of spread out the floors so you can run some certain actions, but the Raptors aren't really getting anything inside consistently either. So, and that a big part of that could be we don't have a big man like a Jonas Valanciunas, even like a Zubac or someone that we can throw the ball inside to. So, the Toronto Raptors haven't really been able to execute in the half court, and that's something that is absolutely going to crush our chances of winning any playoff games because sure, running is effective, and even in playoff games, you can get out some easy buckets. It does help, but the game comes to an absolute grind. It comes to, a real grit and grind playoff atmosphere. You got to be able to execute in the half court if you want to be able to score, and the Toronto Raptors had to figure that out. And obviously, the key to that is figuring out a shooter. It's getting someone that can get buckets down low. But if the Toronto Raptors expect to compete this postseason, as the season comes along, bounce back from our ugly start to the season, we're going to need players to be picked up, at this trade deadline that can sort of help us with our half-court actions. And what's making it even worse is the fact that Toronto Raptors are supposed to be a team that's, built athletically, and sure, fast break offense has been a main cog of our team this season. We're not executing that well on defense, especially in the pick and roll. Another stat that came out today is the Raptors pick and roll defense, a deep dive and analysis of it, and we're basically at the bottom in pretty well every stat for pick and roll defense. You can see everything on there now, like shooting fouls, pick and roll, contests, all that sort of stuff. Right, I don't have my contacts and I can't get too good of a look at it, but the fact that we're not executing on offense when the game comes to halt, the fact that we can't guard specific actions, right? When pick and roll defense, usually they're come within a set of an offense. It's not necessarily your help or weird things that are going on. Nick Nurse definitely has to figure out if his current schemes are working, if people are currently bought into the systems that they're running on offense and defense, because right now we aren't executing whatsoever. Personnel-wise, defensively, I think we have personnel that should be an elite defense right now, especially guarding these weird actions. Offensively, we could see some moves happen, but what do you think should be the biggest change for the Toronto Raptors come up this trade deadline? Let me know in the comment section below. The next thing we're taking a look at is Bleacher Report names 3 potential trade targets for the Toronto Raptors. Now, they made Bleacher Report's always drafting different trade articles, bringing it up, trying to connect players to different teams, but they had an interesting one today, or at least an interesting headline, as they said fresh trade targets for different teams, and 3 players were listed as targets for the Toronto Raptors, and by no means, maybe with the exception of one of them, but we made videos on all 3, right? Not very fresh whatsoever, but they did name these 3 guys as potential targets for the Toronto Raptors to go after, and The three names are Miles Turner, Jakob Poeltl, and Jordan Clarkson. They talk about how the Raptors were a 48-win team last season, that expected to take another step forward this year, but with the amount of internal development, but it hasn't been trending in that direction. It's been going down. We've regressed this season, and that's why there are many eyeballs north of the border hoping the Toronto Raptors pull the plug on win now plans and building around reigning Rookie of the Year Scotty Barnes. And then they go on to say how the players that they acquire in these packages, and Jakob Poeltl, Miles Turner, and Jordan Clarkson, aren't guys that necessarily would be players you're acquiring if you're trying to tear it down. But if they do stay in the direction, try to get forward. And as we talked about in the first segment in this, we need players that can shoot. Jordan Clarkson especially could be a guy that spaces the floor. He's consistent. And while he doesn't really fit the mold of a Toronto Raptors player that's super athletic in terms of guarding defenders, big size that can get in front of people, he's not a great defender by any means, but he is tall for his position. He's quick, but offensively could do wonders for just getting us shots when doing what we want our star boy Gary Trent Jr. to do. Not take the full load on Gary Trent Jr. To be our one-man cog in terms of creating shots at the end of the shot clock. Jordan Clarkson could do that. We'd essentially have 2 6-men because it seems like Gary Trent Jr. will continue to play that 6-man role. But Clarkson sort of plays that similar position, but he'd definitely be a huge plus on that front. Jakob Poeltl, we've discussed him in 2 videos in the last week because of reports about how the Raptors are actively targeting him, right? 13-10, solid defense. Not going to give you a lot on the offensive end, but certainly will be able to help with rebounding and defense and, the pick and roll stuff. Just having a guy that can play drop coverage and pop out, hedge, whatever sort of schemes Nick Nurse wants to run. He can, he's quick enough, he's mobile enough for a 7-foot frame to not get absolutely torched around the 3-point line, where some bigs may have, wouldn't be as quick of feet. So Poeltl will be cool, but Miles Turner is a guy that every single season it feels like Raptors fans want to acquire. There's rumors that we're going to acquire, and his shot blocking presence, he's not that mobile, but his ability to protect the rim in its sort of draw position, can knock down threes in the front court, and maybe with an expanded role, maybe if we focus on getting the ball a little bit more, could have an expanded role in this Toronto Raptors team. Would be an awesome fit. He's having an amazing season, averaging about like 18 and 10 and a couple blocks a game. So Miles Turner would be very, very cool. Last time I checked about a week ago. I should have had the stats brought up in this one, but Miles Turner, all 3 guys, that'd be interesting players. Let me know in the comment section below which player you'd like to see from the Bleacher Report proposed players. But the next thing we're taking a look at is a major injury update for Toronto Raptors games going forward. And we got a couple of injury updates. One of them we already knew, and this is coming from Eric Kareem, just giving us a little update because we got a Precious Achiuwa and some insight into Precious Achiuwa. They said he's still a few weeks away. Some people speculate maybe the New Year's would be the time that he ends up returning, but Eric Kareem basically relayed that Nick Nurse said that the Raptors are probably looking to the new year for Precious Achiuwa return. So there were hopes that maybe he'd be able to return before New Year's, but that's not looking too hopeful now at this point. Precious Achiuwa is a guy that obviously we need to have come back. He's mobile. We saw what he did as the season went along last season. He's an integral piece off our bench that we're really missing. It's hurting us, especially on the defensive end of the floor, and his ability to just be a spark on offense, right? We always talked about how he's either your 3rd best player or 9th best player. On the nights where he's your 3rd best player, he gets us a lot of wins as a Raptors team. So it'd be nice to get Precious Achiuwa back soon, but also news came out that Steph Curry will be expected to miss a few weeks with his shoulder injury, so the Warriors will be without Steph in the game this Sunday against Toronto. So once again, obviously in terms of winning, that means a better chance of the Toronto Raptors winning without Steph Curry there, but it sucks. We miss LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Steph Curry in their 1 games that they play in Toronto, so missing out on that. Star players are just getting hurt for coming up here. It seems a little bit cursed. Those big names, big names coming up north of the border. Raptors fans are missing them. So unfortunate stuff there. I can't blame him. Steph Curry genuinely, his injury is not resting or anything like that, but unfortunate stuff for Raptors fans that were hoping to catch that game. But the final thing we're talking about is an insane Raptors stat for the Friday night games. Because this season, I don't know what it is this year. Maybe the Raptors usually have plans on Friday night. Unfortunately, Goody and I, it's Christmas time. Won't be able to do a live watch along or a post game immediately tonight. The breakdown of that game will come out tomorrow. But I don't know what the Raptors are doing. They're focused on their fun on Friday nights. But it's come out. A little stat muse. Drop this stat. I stole this from Raps Muse. But Toronto Raptors have a record of 0-6 on Friday nights this season. So, hopefully we can come out and get a W here tonight. We can right that ship. And I'm confident. I'm I don't have a segment for it, but you can, I'm feeling good after that Kings game. People were roasting me for being optimistic after that Kings game. I'm booking it. Tonight, I think the Raptors are going to change that streak and get a win on a Friday night. For the first time this season, you can book it in. And the odds are actually pretty good for the Toronto Raptors in this game. If you check it out, let me press the right button here. Right, it's a plus 100 odds, so you can double your money if the Raptors end up getting a W. So, I don't know. I'm out here. I'm booking it. I'll be betting on those Toronto Raptors tonight while the odds are good, while we've been losing. We can't get swept by the Brooklyn Nets, right? It's just something that can't happen this season. And if you guys are interested in betting on this game, interested in sports betting at all, the World Cup is this weekend, anything at all, definitely check out CoolBet. They're a sports book that you can use all across Canada, especially in Ontario, all across Canada. They're regulated, they're safe, and they got some of the best lines. They can bet on any single sport that you're interested in betting on. It makes the game a little bit more exciting, especially when the Raptors have been a little bit drab as of late. So I think now's the time to support the Toronto Raptors, make a game a little bit more exciting. And if you guys sign up for CoolBet using our link down below in the description, it's absolutely free to sign up, and you'll be entered in some giveaways that we're going to announce in the coming weeks. So you want your name put into that as early as possible. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.